My name is Prakash Paspaleti, and this is my presentation on extreme life. Background: what are extremophiles? Extremophiles are organisms adapted to living in extreme environments. They can live in extreme heat, cold, acidity, alkalinity, toxicity, salinity, dryness, and pressure. Some extremophiles prefer extreme environments, whereas others prefer normal environments but can survive in extreme conditions. Most extremophiles are archaea, which are single-celled organisms that are somewhat similar to bacteria. Out of all bacteria, cyanobacteria are the most adapted to extreme conditions, capable of living without oxygen in areas with little water, high or low temperatures, and at high alkalinity. Out of all the eukaryotes, which are organisms whose cells have a nucleus, fungi are most commonly extremophilic. The tardigrade is the most famous extremophile, being able to go dormant and survive at temperatures as cold as 1 Kelvin or as hot as 424 Kelvin, which is 151 degrees Celsius. They can also survive at 6,000 atmospheres of pressure in the vacuum of space and with exposure to radiation as intense as gamma rays, as well as being able to survive indefinitely without food or water. They're also very resilient even when active. Extremophiles can be adapted for one specific extreme or multiple extremes. In the background here, you have a picture of a tardigrade. Relevance of extremophiles in astrobiology. Extremophiles are extremely important in astrobiology because of their great resilience that makes them the most likely candidates for extraterrestrial life. Extremophiles living in extremely cold water underneath ice model how life could potentially live in Europa, whereas life in extremely dry regions could model how life lives on Mars. Extremophiles that can survive in space also support the idea of panspermia, which is an idea that life could travel on comets or asteroids to other planets. Cyanobacteria being an extremophile is especially significant, considering that they photosynthesize and oxygenate the atmosphere. If we ever find an extrasolar planet with oxygen in its atmosphere, cyanobacteria, being the most resilient photosynthesizer, is the most likely source. Research on extremophiles. Hot springs. Research on extremophiles began with the discovery and research into the bacteria Thermus aquaticus, which was discovered in the extreme heat of Yellowstone's hot springs in 1964. You see one of these hot springs in the background here. Hot springs can be very acidic or very alkaline, extremely salty, have very low oxygen content, and can contain gases and particulate matter toxic to most life. The chemicals in hot springs can fossilize bacteria, which makes current and past hot spring sites a good place to study ancient extremophile life. That is why on Mars, scientists look for sites where hot springs may have once existed to find evidence of ancient Martian life. The Martian rovers Spirit and Perseverance are both searching craters which exhibit signs of hydrothermal activity for signs of past or present life. Research on extremophiles. Where else are they? Bacteria highly resistant to heat were also found in underwater thermal vents. You can see an example of one of these vents in the background. Bacteria living in thermal vents could also withstand high pressures and live entirely off of chemical energy from the vents. Lake Vostok is heated by geothermal energy and exists under Antarctic ice, and there is research being done on life found there. The bacteria living in these vents or in Lake Vostok could be similar to possible life on Europa, as pressures will be extremely high under the ice layer and no sunlight could permeate through, necessitating alternate forms of energy. Microorganisms have been found miles deep into the Earth's crust. These microorganisms, living under the pressure of miles of crust with a small underground water supply, could be similar to possible life on Mars. Microorganisms have been found near abandoned nuclear reactors, displaying the resilience to survive and even get energy from extreme radiation. Research on extremophiles. Haloarchaea. Extremophiles that can survive in multiple extremes are more enticing in astrobiology, as being able to survive multiple extremes opens up a greater variety of planets, moons, asteroids, comets, etc. that could potentially host them. Haloarchaea are likely candidates for astrobiology, as they can survive without sunlight, with very little water, with or without oxygen, in high salinity, in high toxicity, and exposed to high UV radiation. Haloarchaea are ancient, being one of the first life forms to evolve on Earth, and because of that, they offer insight into the earliest life forms on Earth, and therefore insight into primitive life that may exist on other planets. Also, Haloarchaea can survive lab conditions similar to the conditions on Mars, and they're highly colored, dense And they make highly colored, dense blooms that can be easily detected through their color and through the byproducts of their metabolism. You can see one of those blooms in the background here. Other candidates. The bacterium Bacillus pulmonis can survive extreme dryness, radiation, and salinity. The bacteria Deinococcus regularus can survive and remain functional in even more extreme radiation, though it requires a nutrient-rich environment to do so. It can also survive in a vacuum and with no water for years, making it a prime candidate for panspermia. There are also some photosynthesizing extremophiles which produce oxygen that can be detected on extrasolar atmospheres. I can't pronounce the name, I'm sorry. Some bacteria can survive extreme radiation and 4 years of air drying, and various yeasts and molds can also survive extreme conditions. These two yeasts can extract energy from ionizing radiation, and this fungus, can survive high concentrations of sodium perchlorate that can be found on Mars. These two black yeasts can survive space and Mars-like conditions. How are extremophiles studied? Scientists search extreme environments for new extremophile species. Astrobiological research on extremophiles is conducted by simulating the environments of extraterrestrial bodies in a lab, then subjecting the extremophiles to it. The extremophiles surviving in these conditions opens up the possibility for its survival on that body. Possible environments to study are Mars, Europa, Enceladus, Ganymede, Callisto, and Titan. This is a picture of Europa in the background. Future research on extremophiles. Scientists continue to discover extremophiles in new environments, pushing the boundaries of what life can survive. Research on how extremophiles evolve and adapt to extreme conditions, on how viruses, which are not considered life but play a crucial role in many microbial ecosystems, and how they might exist and function in extreme environments, are also going on right now. Future Mars rover Rosalind Franklin will collect samples below the Martian surface where life is more likely to have survived and will be equipped with instruments to detect organic molecules. There are also planned missions to Europa, Titan, Ganymede, and Callisto to potentially find extreme life. In conclusion, extremophile research shows the boundaries of where life can survive, expanding the possibilities of where we can look for life. The most useful extremophile study are those that can survive multiple extreme conditions, evolved early in the history of life on Earth, and are easy to detect. An example of that being Haloarchaea. A limitation of extremophile research is that since our only reference frame for life is Earth, life on other worlds may be capable of adapting to different conditions than those found on Earth. By learning to recognize the telltale signs of extremophile life, we can more easily identify planets that have life. Speaking of planets that have life, this is a picture of Earth in the background, my bibliography, and these are the bibliography for my images that I used.